happens? I get up there. My knees start shaking. I'm telling you, that's the first time a Baptist has ever danced on that stage. I'm telling you that for a fact. Okay, so I heard this story the other day. It just kind of get me into the message. So there's this little girl, and she's in science class, right? And she says to the teacher, they're talking about whales and anatomy, and she says, Jonah survived in the belly of a whale for 3 days. And the teacher says, while a whale is big, its stomach is actually really small. So it's impossible for a man to survive there. And she says, okay, well, when I get to heaven, I can ask Jonah. And the teacher says, well, what if Jonah's not in heaven? And she says, okay, well, then you can ask him. Oh! Well, some of you might get that a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that in church, but I just did. Okay, so here we go. Jonah often gets a bad rap because people say, he knew exactly what God wanted him to do, but he went the opposite way. And I can really relate to Jonah because I feel that way in my life as I was growing up. So a little bit about me. When we were growing up, my family, we were Creasters. For those of you who don't know what that means, it means we went to church 2 days a year, Christmas and Easter. Okay, that was it. So we didn't really know that much about God. But then, as I was growing up, when I was 10 years old, my dad ended up leaving, which really bonded us as a family. And one of my mom's friends who'd been with her through it all showed her the way. And through that, she brought us along with us. So when I was young, even though my dad left, that ended up being a great thing for our family by bringing us to the Lord. So we were doing that, and I accepted my calling. First few years, I was like, I knew what God wanted me to do. God was like, hey, Michael, I really want you to be in the ministry. I really want you to be a pastor. Yes, a pastor. Pray for my church now. But he wanted me to be a pastor, right? And I accepted that growing up. But then I became a sophomore in college. A sophomore in high school. And what happens when you get that age? It's no longer cool anymore. People are like, oh, you want to be a pastor? Like, you're not going to make any money. You're not going to have any fun. Because Christian life, people think it's no fun. People think it's restricting. You're not allowed to do anything. But I can tell you, it's exciting, and it's the most exciting. Like this right here, I would never do this, okay? What about if you're just sitting around and God says, hey, go speak to that random person you've never talked to before and tell them about Jesus? If that doesn't excite you, look, your adrenaline will be pumping when that happens. I can tell you that for a fact. So, growing up, I accepted at first, didn't accept it. Then I was going into my senior year, and I was trying to fill this void. Okay, there was a hole that God had put there that only God could fill. And I was trying to fill it with everything. I was trying to fill it with, partying. I was trying to fill it with girls. I was trying to fill it with other things that were never going to fill this hole. Only God can fill this hole. And I went to a Christian college, and I decided, I was going to be a Christian counselor. I was going to appease God. Okay, I was going to be like, hey, I won't work in the ministry. I'll be a Christian counselor, though, so that'll appease him. So I said that. The coach ends up leaving. I play soccer there. He ends up leaving that college and going to a different college. And I was confused. I was like, God, I thought this is what you wanted from me. Coach left. He invites me down to Tennessee to go play for him there. So I go down to Tennessee, play there. But while I'm there, I get homesickness. And I'm still a Christian counselor, so I'm still appeasing God. And I'm practicing, and really, I didn't even enjoy soccer anymore. Something that was such a love in my life, I just didn't enjoy it anymore. Because I was trying to fill that hole that only God can fill with soccer. And I remember practicing, and next to it, there's a building, and it said theology on it. And I can remember it clear as day, God saying to me, you're not going to reach your maximum potential in soccer until you've given me your life. And from that point on, he just continued to hammer me with that. I ended up leaving Tennessee, coming home, going to community college for a year. And I played soccer there, and I still was trying to appease God. And then eventually, recently, I just gave in to God. I said, you know what? I'm going to do what you want. And I go to Lancaster, right? So I go to this Lancaster Bible College. I give them all my credits. I'm like, hey, what can I do? Like, what can I do? Still trying to be like, maybe I can be a Christian counselor. And I'm like, give them all my credits, and they say, guess what? There's only one major that you can complete in 2 years, and it's biblical studies. So I was like, all right, you got me. All right, I'll do it. So finally I gave in, okay? So here's the thing. Have you ever watched a movie twice? What happens the second time you watch it? You notice things that you didn't notice the first time that relate to the big picture, because now you see the turning points that you didn't see. So this is the same thing. What if we could do this with our lives? What if we could look at our lives and see the turning points. There are huge, monumental, life-changing things that happen in our lives that act as turning points. The issue is, it's hard for us to realize what those points are when we're in the middle of it. Okay, we can't realize that. So how do we make sure we're prepared for that? Well, we take every thought captive, which leads us to the scripture that we're talking about. Okay, 2 Corinthians 10, 1 through 6. If you have your Bibles, you can turn to it. This passage shows us how God, we can trust him in our relationships, spiritual lives, and our thought life. So some background for this. During this passage, Paul's speaking to people that don't want to hear him. Okay, this church thinks he's weak. They don't think, Paul, this is Paul we're talking about, one of the strongest Christians of all time. Okay, this church doesn't want to hear him because they say that he's weak, that, when he's away from them, he's really loud about God, but when he's with them, he's not loud about God at all. And he comes up, and this is verse 1 and 2, he says to him, "Now I, Paul, myself beseech," which means urge you, "by the meekness and gentleness of Christ, who in presence and base," which means he's humble among you, "but being absent and bold toward you," which basically what they were talking about. "But I beseech you, urge you, that I may not be bold when I am present with that confidence, wherewith I think to be bold against some, which think of us as if we walked according to the flesh." He's talking about unbelievers. So he's saying, I shouldn't have to show the same boldness talking to you as I do when I talk to unbelievers. Now, put yourself in his shoes. If you're talking to one of your friends that doesn't believe in God, and you're trying to witness to him, would you tell them, I'm really struggling in my prayer life. I feel like God's not working in my life. He's not doing anything. I don't even know if he's listening to me. No, you wouldn't do that. So Paul's saying, you are fellow believers. I should be able to talk to you and understand, and you should be able to understand where I'm coming from when I'm saying these things. They don't understand that Paul's weakness is actually his strength. So Paul taught us an awesome lesson here. How do you deal with people that talk about you? Okay? This is a big subject in high school. Okay? When people say something bad about you, when people talk behind your back, what do you guys do? What's your first response? Do you go right back at them? Do you clap back at them? Do you go talk to your friends and be like, oh, she's talking about me, and blah, blah, blah? Or do you just ignore them and be like, I'm just going to act like they don't even exist. They're going to try to talk to me. I'm not going to look at them in the hallway. I'm not going to do anything. They're going to ask for a pencil, and I'm going to say, who? Okay? That's what do you do? Okay? Paul teaches us. In Matthew 18, he shows us how we react to these people. So if you disagree with someone, okay, or you're in an argument, or someone says something about you, how should you deal with this? Number one, go straight to them. Go straight to them. If you have an issue with someone, go straight to them. Ben said something bad about me, I go straight to Ben. I say, what you talking about, Ben? Okay? If I go around and I start spreading it, and I start gossiping about Ben, that's when things get bigger. That's when things escalate. Okay? Bible teaches us that if you have an issue, go straight to them. And I challenge you in your next year, whether you're going into college, high school, your next year of life, there are so many things that you can resolve by just going straight to the person itself. Okay? So in this next year, just try that. If you don't care what God thinks, still doing this will help your life. If you go straight to them, it'll make your life easier, whether you believe in God or not. Okay? It's just a good life rule. But it will also please God as well, for those of you who do care. So verse 3 and 4 goes on to say, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after flesh. For weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God, pulling down strongholds." Spiritual warfare is real, all right? The definition is a battle between invisible angelic forces that affect you and me. It's hard to fight a battle that we see, but it's even harder to fight a battle we can't see. So this spiritual warfare, there are three heavens in the Bible. You got the one here, you got the atmospheric heaven, then you got the throne room of God, which is what we usually think of when we think of heaven, is the throne room of God. The second heaven is where spiritual warfare. That's where you have angels and demons fighting for your souls, for other people's souls. So, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I don't care if you guys think I'm crazy on this, but I'm gonna go at it. So on Monday, I was like, thinking to myself, I'm feeling no spiritual warfare over preaching this Wednesday. It's the first time ever. I'm like, there's something up. Like, there's nothing. Like, I'm not nervous. Everything's going smoothly. I was like, there's no big deal. Then yesterday, it hit me like a train. Devil was on me. He was like, oh, don't preach. He's like, hey, I even had Pastor Dan's number pulled up. I was like, hey, Pastor Dan, I'm not going to be able to do it tomorrow. And I had that typed out. And then, so I'm praying, I'm like, God, take this from me. So we grew up, me and my mom and my brother and Matthew grew up in an all-black church, okay? It was crazy, okay? Let me tell you a fact. They talking about crushing the head of the serpent all the time. And my mom was all about that, okay? So whenever we were driving the road, if she saw a dead snake on the side of the road, she'd be like, praise Jesus right there. Another dead serpent, okay? That's how she was. And so I'm running yesterday night, and I was praying, and I'm like, God, I know you want me to do this, but I don't feel like doing it. So I'm praying, I'm running, and something happened where a car went by, and it ran over something. I was like, what the heck? I run past it, it's a dead snake. A dead snake in the road. I was like, hey, I already know I won this. Amen, right here. I already know I won this war. Okay, that was just something that he showed me. And if we keep going on for this, warfare, what does warfare actually mean? It means campaign, which is a long-lasting battle of a large scale. Warfare is not one thing. You're not going to deal with the devil one day. You're going to deal with the devil your whole life. It's going to be a long-lasting war. But here's the thing. You're fighting a war you've already won. God's already won this war. Once you realize that God's already won this war, it's a lot easier. You're not actually fighting. God's fighting for you, and he's already won. Which leads us to the last part of the verse, which shows that only God has the power to defeat strongholds, addictions, generational sins. Like, look at me, for instance, just to be real, my grandfather cheated on my grandmother, they got divorced. My dad cheated on my mom, they got divorced. What's that leave? Me. If I live by myself, what's going to happen to me? Why would I be any different than them? Generational sin. That's how it works. And the harder that I try to not be like them, the more I will be like them. Because I can't do it by myself. Only God has the power to break that bond. So if I try my hardest, I can try my hardest. My hardest is filthy rags to God. I can try my hardest and I'll still, why not? Why wouldn't I end up like them? Anyone is capable of any sin while living in the flesh. Okay? So you have to really trust God with that. Which leads us to verse 5. Casting down imaginations, which is another word for arguments, casting down all arguments, and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. That's pride. Pride will keep people from seeing Jesus in you. And bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. How many people have had some crazy thoughts in here? Oh, only a few of you. Got a group full of liars. Okay, so one of my crazy thoughts was, in school you're sitting there and you're in history class, it's really boring. Okay, so you just start dazing off. One of my things is I'm dazing off and I think what if a crazy gunman came in this room? How would I hide behind this door? He'd come right around, I'd snap the door, kick him in the face, news would come, I'd be a hero, it would be awesome. Okay, that was just one of the crazy thoughts I had. Look, you don't control everything that comes to your mind. Okay? You can't. You can't. The devil puts things in your mind. Things you look at put things in your mind. Here's a great analogy for you. Because some people think maybe just because I think this, it's a sin. Imagine you're at a gate, okay? You're the gatekeeper. You can't control what comes to the gate, but you can control what you let in the gate, okay? So imagine that. You can't control the thoughts that come, but you can control what you let in. Okay? And in that same way, a lot of things that we let to the gate, we're like, hey, why don't you come to the gate? Like things like Instagram, Snapchat, music, things we put in our minds. Those are things that we're like, we kind of tempt ourselves into doing some things. Like some things on Instagram, there are some pictures I see that I just have to unfollow that person. I just don't want that temptation. Okay? That's things that are coming in my mind that I just don't want to battle with that. And that's some things that you'll have to come with in your own life. Just right, I don't want to deal with that. You see a pretty girl, it's not a sin to go, she's pretty. But it's probably a sin to go, she is pretty. That's probably a sin. I'm probably thinking about that a little bit too much. Okay? It's not a sin to think, it's a sin to dwell on it. And that leads us to verse 6. And having readiness to revenge, punish all disobedience, when your obedience is fulfilled. Now, look, you all know me. You know I play sports. You know I love some revenge, okay? You know I love to revenge some people. But here's the thing. The second part of this verse is more important than the first. The second part says, when your obedience is fulfilled, you have to punish your own disobedience before you can even think about punishing someone else's disobedience. And one great story that